Hi, in this video we'll talk about low elo friendly playstyle on Caitlyn that will help you to win a lot of games while getting better at ADC fundamentals at the same time. Right now we see how Caitlyn gets a triple kill and first blood tower. We'd all have to find ourselves in this position. But how did this Caitlyn get here? Assisted by ex-Gen.G Academy player Focus, we'll figure out what exactly you should do to get these results. Let's start with our pre-game setup. If all you want is a summary of builds, runes, abilities and bans, pause the video. For a more in-depth analysis, stick around. Caitlyn is an exceptional blind pick champion. Even if she gets into a bad matchup, she can safely farm until the mid game. Because of it, you can choose to ban a variety of champions. You can remove ADCs with similar pushing power like Jhin, Jinx, Ashe or Seer. You can remove supports that can hurt you from afar or have target card control like Lux, Xerath, Blitzcrank, Maokai or Alistar. You can also remove early ganking junglers that can punish your pushing playstyle like Warwick, Rek'Sai, Xin Zhao, Nunu or Zac. You can use two rune pages on Caitlyn. Fleet Footwork is for the early game safety and short trading during the lane. Because of it, it is more friendly towards the new players. Little Tempo is for damage and extended trading. As of right now, Little Tempo is more popular. Focus always takes Sorcery as his second tree. He uses Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm in it. Caitlyn has insane AD ratios on all of your abilities. So, even having 20-25 additional AD from Sorcery makes a big difference. Your starting items are always Long Sword and 3 health pots. This combo gives you the most sustained power for the early laning phase. It allows you to rush mythic item as soon as possible. With all of that being said, Focus often started the game with Scalp back in the day. This start slightly delays your first item by timing, but lets you buy your second item faster. A slight downside to this start is that you have to take Fleet Footwork, because you lack health potions. The most common Caitlyn item build looks like this. Usually players use Little Tempo with this build, but, statistically speaking, Fleet Footwork performs better. Let's talk about possible deviations from this build that you might need to do. Sometimes you might want to swap Collector for Lord Dominic. When is it good? In general, if you are facing 2-3 bruises or tanks, you want to buy Lord Dominic. However, in my opinion, if you are facing that many tanky members, you probably should have gone for the second build that we will talk about shortly. You also want to buy Lord Dominic when the opposing team has 2-3 Ninja Tabis. This does not happen too often, but I want you to be ready. Another option for the second item is Stormrazor. In general, this is not the best item to buy, but if your team is winning across the board and you want to end the game quickly, you can buy this item second, with Rapid Fire Cannon as your third item. Now let's talk about the second Caitlyn build. Sometimes you blind pick Caitlyn and face a lot of tanks on the opposing team. In this case, this is built for you. Runes are personal preference, but this build works best with Little Tempo. The only deviation that you can do with this build is to take Rapid Fire Cannon instead of Phantom Dancer. RFC always was a staple item on Caitlyn, because it allows you to poke champions and towers before the fight starts. Also, do not forget that Fleet has synergy with RFC, while PD has a great synergy with Little Tempo. Maybe this information will influence your rune choice. Okay, but what about Immortal Shieldbow? I saw Focus buy Shieldbow only if he faces Assassins. I also saw him using this item only with the Little Tempo plus Phantom Dancer combination. In terms of abilities, you always max it in this way: R, Q, W, E. You always take Q at level 1. At level 2 you take E if you are laning with a poke or enchanter support, and W if you are laning with a all-in engage support. At level 3 you take an ability that you did not take earlier. Caitlyn is an embodiment of classic ADC champion. She has a long out attack range and the lowest base HP from all ADCs. Because of it, Caitlyn does not like to trade damage. She prefers to pressure with an unanswered poke. Caitlyn has a sweet spot of 650, minus the opponent's range. The key to playing her is to keep your opponents in this spot. Most of her playstyle revolves around getting off an auto attack and moving in the correct direction. If they are moving forward, you move back. If they are moving back, you move forward. You need to be able to react to the opponent's movements. Usually, players are trying to push as slow as possible to have a lot of openings for poke. However, Focus hard pushes all the time. Yes, you heard right. 1000 LP Korean challenger constantly hard pushes like it is called elo. This unusual feature is why I believe that this is a low elo friendly playstyle. Focus does not think about wave management as much. Instead, he focuses on constantly poking the opponents and hitting their tower as much as possible. However, you have to understand that some ADCs have ways to prevent you from pressuring them. They do it either through having the same or higher attack range, or through the ability to wave clear as fast as you. In these matchups, your lane will turn into AFK farm fest. This might not be the dream scenario for Caitlyn, but it is not that bad, because she scales very well. Hard pushing is a dangerous strategy, because it opens you to being ganked. If these ganks would ruin your laning phase, you will feel miserable for the rest of the game. Let's talk about a few patterns that Focus uses to not die during the lane. First of all, when someone engages at Focus, he never uses EQ combo. Instead he uses EW. There are several reasons for that. EW is faster than EQ, because W animation is faster than Q animation. Another reason is that placing W in front of the opponent forces him to give up chasing or walk around the trap. When you do the EW combo, always slightly move your cursor towards yourself. This will make the trap land in front of the opponent, rather than on top of him. Secondly, constantly hard pushing the lane is fine. What is actually killing you is hitting the tower. Focus has several rules when he is allowed to do it. Focus never hits the tower if he doesn't know where is the opposing jungler, or he does not have ward coverage. I have to add something to the rule from my own experience. I have noticed that having a lazy ward in the tree bush or in the river often is not enough, especially since nowadays a lot of junglers take Predator. So I slightly changed this rule. I never hit the tower without deep wards. Focus never hits the tower if he doesn't know where the opposing mid laner and top laner are. Focus plays really safe when the opposing jungler is nearby. If Focus doesn't have flash or other summoners, he doesn't even walk up to the wave and allows opponents to push him in. When allied support is roaming, Focus also plays really safe. He farms from a max out attack range and doesn't walk up to the wave if he doesn't have summoners. If you want to play completely safe, like Reckless, don't walk up to the minion wave when it hits your tower, if you don't have summoners to outplay the possible dive. Just collect experience from a safe distance. Every rule has an exception. Focus has one too. When a light jungler is in the bot side river, Focus lets himself hit the tower, even if it means breaking the rules that I described earlier. If you are playing against a good opponent, it is unlikely that you will get kills. Usually good opponents won't get poked for free, even if they are in a bad matchup. They will just allow you to push them in and hit the tower. However, even good opponents will make mistakes. Let's talk about how to punish them. It will be hard to get kills if you are laning with ranged support, but it will be easy to push the lane and poke opponents under the tower. The best chance to kill opponents in this situation is to make them step into your trap. Here are some cute trap placements from Focus. Another way of using your traps is to place them underneath the opponent after he was crowd controlled by your support or any other teammate. Usually you follow aligns with the following combo: auto, W, auto, E, Q, auto, auto, Gale Force, R. This combo might slightly change depending on the situation. First of all, you can't always use Gale Force R at the end of your combo. Sometimes you simply won't have Gale Force. Sometimes using R won't be good because opposing support will block it. Also, imagine such a situation. Your support landed his CC. You followed up with the first part of your combo. At this point, the opposing support will try to use all of his abilities on you to save his ADC. Do you really want to use Gale Force for additional damage at this point? Or maybe you want to use it to dodge incoming abilities? Maybe you want to just hold it and just auto-attack for the time being. There are a lot of niche situations that you will figure out eventually if you analyze your replays. Secondly, you need to take into consideration trap activation time. Your trap arms only after 1 second. Crowd control abilities last different times on different supports. Let's say you are laning with Leona. Her EQR combo stuns the opponent for 3 seconds. This is more than enough to do a full combo. Trap will arm underneath the opponent no matter what. Contrarily, Pantheon W stands for only 1 second. You simply don't have enough time to do auto W. You have to immediately use W. In my experience, Pantheon Tan is so short that you probably need to already start placing your trap when Pantheon just started W animation. Thirdly, you don't need to always do the EQ combo. E has cast time, which is the time that you are not auto-attacking. Also, E is your only escape ability. Sometimes it's better to hold it, rather than using it for damage. Here's an example. You are laning against Rakan, and your support lands crowd control on him. You follow with auto W auto. If Rakan doesn't die by the time he gets out of your CC chain, he will have an option to jump onto you. So, maybe it is better to just auto W auto Q, and then save your E for the possible Rakan W. Again, this is something that you need to learn by yourself. Finally, don't forget that enemies revealed by your trap always take full damage from Q. This means that even if there is a minion wave between you and the opponent blocking your E, you can auto W auto Q auto through the minion wave. Let's combine all we learned in a simple generic rule. If you know that you have time to do a full combo, and you know that it will one-shot the opponent, go for it. If you don't have time to execute your full combo, or you want one-shot our opponent, you probably should slightly change it. Mid-game starts when the first tower falls, and it's all about time efficiency. The most crucial mid-game concept sounds like this. Whoever controls the mid lane, controls the mid-game. Because of it, your goals as ADC during the mid-game are: have control over the mid lane push, farm as much as possible, avoid sharing experience with solo laners or jungler, help your team when they fight for the objectives. As a result, your mid-game plan will look like this. You push the mid lane wave and choose what to do next from these 4 options. Help your team in the fight or on the objective. Invade the jungle to get deep vision and steal camps. Rotate towards side lane to pick up free farm if your team doesn't want it. Recall and buy an item. Let's take a look at a few in-game examples from Focus. Caitlyn won the lane. She destroyed the tower, pushed the wave into opponent, and went back to base to spend the gold. Now, Focus has to choose where to go. Technically he can go top, but there is only one objective on the map as of right now, Ocean Dragon. As an ADC, your job is to always farm near the next objective, so Focus can only go mid or bot in this case. However, there is no point going bot because there is no tower and no wave to farm. Focus chooses to go mid, even though he will be sharing the experience with Vex. Kindred sees her team sieging mid tower and decides to summon Rift Herald. Focus is forced to stay here because his team wants an objective. Luckily bot lane wave still isn't pushed into Red's team tier 1 tower, so they don't lose farm for this move. Let's take a look at another example. This time Caitlyn lost the lane. There are no objectives on the map, so Focus is free to go anywhere he wants. Mid and top are already taken, so Focus goes bot to collect incoming minion waves. He safely waits until the opposing team destroys the tower because he can't defend 1v2, and recalls after safely collecting the minions. He does it because he doesn't have any vision in his own jungle, so it will be too dangerous for him to farm the next wave too. After the recall, he goes back to our cookie cutter plan. Focus runs mid and farms there. Basically there is only one difference between playing from a losing position and a winning position. You can't collect side lane waves as freely, because you don't have the vision to rotate there, or you need to farm the mid lane wave. Teamfighting as Caitlyn is similar to any other ADC. In a nutshell, you just stand behind your front line and hit the closest target. However, there are a few crucial points that you need to know. Don't use Q on tanky targets. There are 3 reasons for this. The first reason is Q doesn't do damage to tanky champions. The second reason is Q has a very long cast time. Instead of casting one low damage ability, you could have done 2 auto attacks that could have crit. The third reason is you want to have your Q available for a maximum damage combo onto a squishy target. Place your traps onto crowd control champions. In general, placing the snap traps that will hit opponent is more important than doing one auto attack at him. Your damage is mostly coming from headshots. The best way to guarantee a headshot is to make your opponent step into a trap. The last point is also about snap traps. You can use them to transform terrain. This means that you can force opponents to go or not to go into some regions. Here are 3 common ways to do it. Let's say you're DPSing someone, and you don't want him to get out of your range. In this case, you can just use Snap Trap behind him. Another situation is when someone wants to engage. In this case, you can use Snap Trap between him and you. The last example is when you want to completely block someone from walking towards you, or flanking from a certain place. In this case, you can just build a wall of traps and be completely safe. On this note, I ask you to leave your opinions about this guide or suggestions for the next one in the comment section. Also leave a like or dislike under the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more interesting content. Hopefully you learned a lot. Good luck in your solo queue games.